Alright, so in previous sections we introduced to basic stuff of SASS, and based on that we built our first project. As I promised, we're going to go through some advanced topics of SASS, and then we will build another project in which we will use some advanced stuff. First thing that we're going to refer to is data types in SASS. Actually, if you are familiar with any of the programming languages, then you should already know what data means. But if not, it's not a problem because it's very simple to understand. So in SASS we have 7 different data types. They are numbers, strings, colors, lists, maps, booleans, and null. Alright, let's go ahead and describe each of them. I want to mention that most of these data types we have already used in previous lectures, but now I'm going to describe them in details. So I have created a new folder on desktop called Advanced SASS, in which we have some files and folders. Let's open it in brackets. So we have here index.html file, package.json, which is already prepared. In CSS folder we have main.css file, and in SCSS folder I've created main.scss file. Let's open terminal, then navigate to this folder, write cd desktop, then cd advanced SASS, and run command npm run watch. Alright, so we are ready. Let's go back to data types. I'm going to start with numbers. Actually, I will write some dummy styles. I'm not going to create some HTML elements because I just want to describe what kind of data types we have in SASS. So let's start from numbers. SASS supports integers like we used in case of, let's say, font weight. Then we can have numbers with decimals like it's in case of line height. And also we can have numbers with different measurement units. I mean, let's say pixels. Or we can have rems, ems, percentage, and so on. So all of those values are valid numbers in SASS. Next we have strings. Actually, strings represent some text values, and they can be expressed by quotes or without quotes. For example, we can write for font family values like Helvetica, Arial, sans serif. So here we have 3 string values. First one is written with quotes. As for second and third one, they are string values as well, but they are expressed without quotes. Besides font family, we can use, for example, font weight bold, or font style italic, and so on. Alright, so those were strings. Next data type, we have colors. Each color value which we can use is SASS data type. Let's say we're able to use named colors, for example, red. Also, we can use hexadecimal values. Besides that, we're able to use RGB values and also RGBA, in which we can define opacity of color. Colors can be written in HSL values, which actually stands for hue, saturation, and lightness. So those are different color values, and actually colors is SASS data type. Alright, next data type that I want to talk about is lists. Somehow they are like arrays. You may have some knowledge about arrays. Actually, list can store multiple values. For example, we can define margin with different values, let's say 10 pixels, 15 pixels, then 5 pixels, and 20 pixels. So in this case we have list and its values are separated by space, but besides that values can be separated by commas. For example, we can use again font family with different values, let's say railway, doses, and lotto. So this is comma separated list, but each individual value itself is a string. Besides that, we are able to create a list which will include different data types. For example, we can use border, which can take values like number, right, 1 pixel, string, like solid, and color, like red. Alright, so that's it about lists. Next, I'm going to move on to maps, and let's do it in the next lecture. Okay, so in previous lecture we discussed some data types in SASS, I mean numbers, strings, colors, and lists. And now it's time to move on and describe next data type, which is called map. Actually, map can store data in key value pairs. It's like an associative array, which means that it stores both keys and values associated to those keys. Syntactically, maps should be surrounded by parentheses, and mentioned key value pairs should be separated by commas. Alright, let's create map and call it colors. Then insert here some colors. As a key, let's write primary, and assign to it color, let's say red. Then for second one, write secondary, green, and then tertiary with value blue. So as you see, after first and second pairs we placed comma. As for the last one, we don't need to use it. So that's it, what map looks like. It contains some data, and now we are able to use this data in the following way. Suppose that we want to change color and background color of one of the elements, let's say H1. So in order to get color from map, we have to use method called mapGet, which should take two arguments. First one is going to be the name of map, in this case colors. As for second one, it should be a key. At this time, let's use primary. So if we check compiled code, then we will find that H1 has color set as red, actually, which we indicated as a primary color. In the same way, we can change background color. Let's use again mapGet, then insert name of map colors, and key secondary. So as you can see, everything works fine. Alright, instead of those strings, I mean primary, secondary, tertiary, we're able to use numbers. For example, we can change them and write 1, 2, and 3. And also we have to change here keys. So if we check compiled code, we will get the same result. Besides that, you're able to use keys with quotes. Let's get back here, primary, and surround it with quotes. Still, code will work just fine and we'll get the same result. Alright, so that's the way how we can create maps and how we can access on data. Actually, it's really handy tool, and using it you can organize and structure your code in much better way. Okay, so the next data type which I want to talk about is Boolean. It has two possible values, true or false. Basically, those values are used with conditional statements like if-else statement, which will be discussed in coming lectures. So for now, I'm not going to go deeper with Boolean data type. Just remember that it has two values, true or false. Alright, the last data type which I'm going to describe is null. Null is just empty. It doesn't have any value at all. So we can say that it represents an empty value. One thing that you should know is that it's case sensitive. I mean, you should strictly write null with lowercase. Otherwise, it will be just plain string value. You can use null when you want the value of something to be nothing. Alright, that's all about data types in SASS. Some of them will be referred to for multiple times in coming lectures. So if something was not clear for you, you don't have to worry about it. Okay, see you in the next video. Alright, now it's time to introduce you to another topic in SASS, which is called interpolation. This topic is not unique only to SASS because you may come across this thing in different programming languages. For example, if you're familiar with template literals in ES6 version of JavaScript, then interpolation is quite similar to it. So what does interpolation mean? In simple words, we are able to create variables, and then using interpolation, we can use those variables in either selectors or property names or in their values. Alright, let's go ahead and see in practice what we are talking about. First of all, I'm going to create a couple of variables. First one is going to be variable b. Let's assign to it string value border. As for second variable, let's call it c and assign to it value color. Okay, let's say we have h2 heading elements and we want to assign to it a couple of properties and values. So let's select h2. Suppose we want to use here property called box sizing with value border box. Also, let's say we need to use border with following values: 1 pixel, solid, blue. Besides that, let's set some more styles: right color red and background color green. Okay, so as you can see here, we used border twice, I mean as a value and as a property name, and also we have here color twice as well. So that's the moment when we can demonstrate how interpolation works in SASS. We have here variable b with value border, and we can pass this variable in both cases where we are using border. In order to do that, let's delete border from here. Then we have to place £, which should be followed by curly braces, in which we have to pass name of variable, in this case b. Let's do the same for second border. So if we save and then check compiled code in main.css file, you will see that everything works fine. We still have border in both cases. If you notice, we created string values with quotes, but in compiled code we don't have them because interpolation gets rid of quotes. In the exact same way, we can replace colors. Let's write again £. Inside curly braces, insert variable c, and then do the same for background color. Again, everything works perfectly. We have here the same result, and actually that's the way how interpolation works in SASS. That was kind of simple example, but in real world you can make your SASS code much more concise and flexible using interpolation, especially when you use loops, which actually you will meet in coming lectures. Alright, that's all about SASS interpolation. Let's move on to the next lecture. Alright, so in the last video we talked about SASS interpolation, and now it's time to move on and introduce you to another SASS topic. It's called loops. Actually, you can meet loops in almost every programming language, and it's a really handy tool. If you're not familiar with loops yet, then we can define it in the following way. Loops are used when you want to run the same code block over and over again, each time with a different value. We have multiple types of loops in SASS, and we're going to describe relatively popular ones, which are for loop and each loop. Alright, Let's go ahead and create some HTML elements. I'm going to create paragraph with class name paragraph1. Then insert here some dummy text. Then duplicate this code 3 times and change class names as paragraph 2, 3, and 4. Alright, suppose that we want to assign to each paragraph different background color. In CSS we have to select each paragraph individually and then assign to each one different background color. In SASS, using for loop, we can do it in much more simple and flexible way. At first I'm going to create map which will hold 4 different colors. Let's call it colors. And insert here several key value pairs. First one is going to be red color. Then for second one use green. Next will be blue. And for fourth color, let's use orange. Alright, so we have here 4 different colors, and I'm going to assign to first paragraph color red, then to second one color green, and so on. For that we have to use for loop, and in order to create it we need to use a couple of keywords. At first I'm going to write the code and then I will explain what those keywords actually mean. So we need to write @, then for, then variable I, from 1 through 4. So here we used variable I, which actually is something like iterator or counter. It changes value on each iteration. In this case, on first iteration I is going to be 1, on second iteration it should be 2, then 3, and then 4. Next keywords, I mean from and through, as their name suggests, mean that I will change its values from 1 through 4, and code block will stop execution as soon as 4th iteration finishes. Alright, enough talking, let's write the code. I'm going to select paragraph, and instead of writing manually 1, 2, 3, or 4, I'm going to use here interpolation, write £, and inside curly braces insert variable I, and then use background color. In order to get colors from map, as you already know, we have to use function called mapGet, which takes 2 arguments. First one is the name of map, colors. As for second one, we have to pass here needed key. Again, instead of numbers, let's insert here variable I. Alright, before I save this code and see the results, let me explain what's happening here. On first iteration, I equals to 1. It means that we have here paragraph 1. It's getting value of first pair for background color, which is red. Then on second iteration, I becomes 2. We have here paragraph 2, and it's getting second color from map, which is green. And the same happens on third iteration and on fourth one. After that, code block stops execution. So let's save this code. As you can see, each paragraph has different background color, and if we check compiled code, you will see that. So that's the way how for loop works, and you agree that it's really handy tool. Instead of selecting each paragraph and assigning to it different background color, we can write just this couple of lines of code, which is more efficient and flexible. One more thing regarding for loop is that instead of keyword through, we can use keyword to, which means that there will be only 3 iterations, because in this case 4 is not including. I will become 1, then 2, then 3, and after that code block will stop execution. If we check CSS code, you will see that we have here only first 3 paragraphs. That's the main difference between keywords through and to. Alright, that's all about for loop. Next we are going to talk about each loop, and for that let's move on to the next lecture. Alright, so in previous lecture we learned about for loop, how to create it and how it actually works. It allows us to write much efficient and flexible code. Besides for loop, in SASS we have each loop, which like for loop executes block of code over and over again until elements are expired. Let's see in practice what those words mean and how each loop actually works. I'm going to get rid of this code from main.scss file Also, let's make some changes in HTML document. Instead of those numbers in class names, I'm going to use color names. For first one, write red, then green. Next one should be blue. And for last paragraph, write orange. Suppose that we want to do the same here. I mean to assign to each paragraph proper background color. For that, let's create a list in main.scss file. Let's call it colors. And assign to it a couple of colors, red, green, blue, and orange. In this case, values are separated by space, but as you know, we can separate them by commas as well. In both cases, list will work. So in order to create each loop, we need keyword each with @sign. Then we need to place here variable which should represent current value from the list. Let's call it color. Then it should be followed by keyword in. And lastly, we need to place here name of list colors. So on first iteration, variable color will take first value from the list, which is red. Then on second one, it will take green. On third one, blue. And on last one, orange. Let's insert here code block, select paragraph. As you remember, we added to class names colors like paragraph red, paragraph green. And now in order to select paragraph, I'm not going to use those color names. Instead of that, we should use interpolation. And we have to pass variable color. Next, let's assign to paragraph background color. And again, instead of writing here any color name, we need to use variable color. So let me explain what will happen here. On first iteration, value of color variable will be red, first member of our list. We will have here paragraph red, and its background color will become red as well because we passed here variable color. On second iteration, color should be green. We will have paragraph green, and its background color will get as a value green color. The exact same will happen on third and fourth iterations. Paragraph blue will get blue color, and paragraph orange will get orange background. So if I save this code, then all four paragraphs will get their proper background colors. And also if we check compiled code in main.css file, you will see that clearly. Alright, so that's the way how each loop works in SASS, and I hope it makes sense to you. Throughout our next project, we will use each loop, so you will get your hands dirty in it in the future as well. Okay, see you in the next video. Alright, so once we are done with loops, we have to move on to the next topic, which is going to be if directive. Actually, it's quite similar to if or if-else conditional statements, which exist in different programming languages. So if directive takes SASS expression and executes block of code according to some condition. In order to demonstrate what if directive looks like and how it works, let's write some examples. Create h1 heading element with content if directive. Then go to main.scss file and select this element. So in order to create if directive, we need to write @sign and then keyword if. It should be followed by parentheses, in which we should insert some condition. For simplicity, let's just write here something like 2 is greater than 4. And then inside curly braces, insert some style, let's say color red. So if I save this code and check output in browser, heading element will have its default black color. It happens because condition inside if directive is false, 2 is definitely less than 4, and therefore block of code is not executed. If we check main.css file, it will be empty. So in order to execute block of code, condition should be true. If we just change this comparison sign and write 2 is less than 4, then code will be executed and color of heading will become red. So remember that if condition inside if directive is true, actually it's a boolean value, we discussed it when we were talking about SASS data types. then block of code will be executed. But if it's false, then code won't be executed. Alright, that's it about if directive. Sometimes we may have to use if, else statement. In order to see how it works, I'm going to use another example. Let's comment this code out and then create Mixin. Let's call it heading size. Then inside parentheses insert parameter and call it size. So at first I'm going to create if statement. As a condition, let's insert here size double equals to large. Actually, I used here double equal sign. It's known as a comparison operator, and it compares values on the left and right sides and returns Boolean value either true or false. Let's insert here block of code, font size 45 pixels. So if size equals to large, then condition will be true and font size will become 45 pixels. Now I want to consider other cases. I mean, we need to create else if statement, and as a condition, let's write size double equals to medium. So if this condition is true, then I want font size to be, let's say, 30 pixels. And lastly, let's create else statement. It doesn't have its own condition. We just need to write here font size, let's say 15 pixels. Alright, let me explain what this statement actually means. First of all, condition of if directive will be checked. If it's true, then font size will become 45 pixels. If it's false, then this code won't be executed, and condition of else if statement will be checked. If it's true, then font size of heading element will become 30 pixels, but if it's false as well, then style inside else statement will be applied to, and font size will become 15 pixels. Alright, let's see it practically. Select H1 element and include Mixin. As an argument, let's insert here, for example, large. So if we save, then font size of heading element will become 45 pixels. Let's check compiled code. So as you can see, font size equals to 45 pixels. It happened because we inserted here large as an argument, and condition inside if statement became true. In the same way, if we insert here medium, then condition of else if statement will be true and font size of heading will become 30 pixels. And lastly, if we don't insert here any argument at all, or insert something different from large or medium, let's say small, then none of those conditions will be true and code inside else statement will be executed. As you see, font size of H1 heading element is 15 pixels. Alright, so that's the way how if directive works in SASS. It might be helpful and handy in some cases, so I hope everything was clear for you. Okay, let's move on to the next lecture.